Will Vladimir Putin attack Europe? In this video, we're going to look at the astrology of this formidable leader, this much feared, much maligned, much vilified man, but also admired by many, Vladimir Putin, this big figure on the global stage, this big powerful figure. And we're going to analyze his karma very in depth. We're going to look at his chart very in depth to understand who this man is, why he's doing what he's doing, and then to answer the question whether it's in the book, in the cards, for him to attack and invade Europe. Let's go. So the question is whether Putin will attack Europe. And to answer this question, we're going to do a deep dive into his astrology to understand the karma, to understand the archetypal forces. Now, the question itself, you may have, already made up your mind on this depending on which news you follow. If you're following the mainstream media, the CNN and the Guardian and the whatever, Euronews and Sky News and anything like that, you probably think that Putin is some type of new Hitler, some type of Putler, who's hell-bent on recreating the Soviet Union as an empire and who's just waiting for somehow, waiting to invade all of Europe or attack Europe. And if you're following alternative media, if you're following any BRICS-aligned or any MAGA-aligned news, you may have a very different picture. If you're following people like Tucker Carlson, who actually went and had a long conversation with Putin, or if you're following people like Judge Napolitano and others, you may have a different image. You may think of him as somebody who's simply defending his nation, his interests of his nation from corrosive ideological influences and from geostrategic cornering by NATO warmongers. And regardless of which position you have, regardless of which perspective, which of those two perspectives or other perspectives that exist as well, you may have, all of them are just, both of them are just approximations. They're just particular perspectives, which are leaving out a large part of the deeper spiritual truth, right? They're just momentary perspectives from this side or that side or whatever. In order to get to the deeper underlying spiritual truth, we can use the tools of intuition that are God-given, where we can read and intuit and understand the karma of people. Not everybody has that ability. This is an ability of higher initiates. But we can also use the astrology. We can read the astrology. Astrology really shows us in detail the karma of the person, the soul of the person, why it has incarnated into this particular incarnation, what maybe has driven it to do so over previous incarnations, and how it relates now to the unfolding cosmic story. All of this we can see in the charts, in the astrology charts. The charts are extremely powerful. So the chart that we have of Vladimir Putin, this is actually, we have here a case of divine providence having given us the exact coordinates. So we know we have the real time and the real location, which is very, very valuable, obviously, because it allows us to see so much more detail. Now this chart, when we start to look at a chart, what do we do? Usually we start by understanding the basic aspect figures and the sun, the ascendant, the moon, the MC, and the figures that they make. This is how we approach going into a chart. And you know that I have added, as I always do, I have added stars and asteroids to get much, much, much more detail, right? Far more detail than you would usually get. So we're going to go into this chart and we're going to see what we can find. So first thing is, we want to understand what kind of person is this. And we have a sun in Libra, which is as well which stands with Saturn, right? Sun with Saturn, like the extremely serious person, the authority figure who's like all about, responsibilities. And this serious authority figure, his focus is relationships, right? And those relationships are with international group relationships, right? With political relationships. Obviously, 11th house is political relationships. But also, it's on the cusp of the 12th house, also secret relationships. hidden and secret relationships. That's his focus, right? He's the grand master of relationships, right? That's also Saturn with Sun. It makes you the authority figure in whatever field it is that you're in. And now, this Sun, it's actually also, there is a star, I haven't put it here, but there's a star called, I don't know why it's not showing, there's a star called Algorab. Algorab is exactly on his Sun. The stars, they are the parameters of your destiny, right? The asteroids are the nuances of your story. The stars are the basic parameters that you cannot go beyond, right? Algorab, if you look it up, it stands for, interestingly, it stands for a fate of having to deal with karmic relationships and karmic conflicts in relationships that you cannot maneuver away from, that you have to face, right? Having to face these conflicts in karmic relationships. And it also, interestingly, it says it gives political and historical interests, right? Which obviously is very, very clearly given in the case of Vladimir Putin, right? And then you have also, with this Sun, you have Fanatica and Melete. Melete stands for focus, and Fanatica is self-explanatory. So here's the man who is a master of relationships, who is deeply focused, and who deals with political and also hidden relationships, behind the scenes, right? Okay, so far all makes a lot of sense. Obviously, we can totally recognize Putin in this. Now, what else? You know, he's got an ascendant, right, with a couple of asteroids here on his ascendant. The ascendant is in the first degrees of Scorpio. Scorpio, so this is how you approach the world, right? And the first degree of Scorpio, you have the star Princeps here, the boss. Like anything that is in the first couple of degrees of Scorpio is always conjunct Princeps, which is the boss star, the star that makes you a boss, the prince, right? So the boss is his approach to things. And what do you got here? You got Toro, Vladimir, and Ate. Ate stands for conspiracies. And Vladimir stands for the revolutionary leader, right? It was actually Lenin was a revolutionary leader, right? So his basic appearance, how he approaches things, is as the boss who is very good at conspiracies, right? He's like, Scorpio power is always behind the scenes, is always very subdued. Scorpio enters the room and you know that they call the shots, but they're kind of quiet about it. You know, they're kind of they have this aura of deep power without needing to get loud. That's archetypal Putin, right? That's like quintessential Putin. So Putin has this Scorpio ascendant, right? And with this, he's also a revolutionary, and he's also into these. He has this leader energy, right? And he's also into conspiracies. Okay, and then like basically, conspiracy means basically he makes deals behind the scene. He doesn't really reveal his hand a lot. He's not somebody who's very open to reveal his hand. He's not like Trump. Trump is a Leo ascendant. He's going to go and he's going to say, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, right? He's going to be very open about what he's doing. Not Putin. Putin is a Scorpio ascendant. Scorpio is completely, calculated and quiet about what they're doing, right? And they have power, but they're not revealing the sources of their power, right? And interestingly, there is a twist here because the MC, when you look at the MC is how you're perceived publicly. The MC for Putin is actually in Leo, right? So this is, now you're going to say, but you said, no, it's not. So no, this is very different. The ascendant is how you approach things, is who you are, right? It's how you approach things. The MC is what's the result of what you do. You do you, and then the result is the MC. You do your ascendant, and the result is the MC, right? So what does this mean? The result is the MC. The MC is in Leo, and it's not just any Leo. This is the 20th degree of Leo. This is conjunct the star Merak. Merak stands for global power, right? And Leo obviously stands for visible power, right? Visible power. And then you have Pluto here. Pluto is, again, power. Pluto is the planet, right? Or the star of the object, the celestial object of power, right? It stands for big transformative power and like just the boss, right? So the deep, dark power. So all of this is on his MC. He's basically, as a result of what he does, he's globally perceived as this immense figure of power. It's basically his destiny is to be seen as the most powerful person, right? But also as a deeply transformative person. We're going to come back to to that later when we understand. So when we understand some of the asteroids that are around that, deeply problematic asteroids, deeply problematic, that show us the type of conflicts that he's destined to get into with different states, states. I will tell you, watch this video till I'm going to tell you, I'm going to decode it for you. I'm going to tell you which states are affected or which states are involved into his destiny here, right? So now, but let's continue first with decoding the chart. So what else do we got? We've got here, there's a Jupiter-Venus opposition. You see here, Jupiter is in the 7th house. He creates a lot of opportunities for his friends, for his partners. Jupiter-Venus, like he creates a lot of wealth and a lot of opportunities for his friends, right? His partners. Who are his partners? People like Xi Jinping. You can think about Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un, right? Or Lukashenko, right? These are whoever are his partners. He's creating a lot of opportunities for them. He's very opulent for them. He's making big deals for them. He's elevating them, right? So you can see that in the chart. But then this same Jupiter, the Jupiter that we just seen, the Jupiter is in a tension with Pluto, square Pluto. Jupiter square Pluto, right? This is the primary aspect. This is a major aspect that shows you power struggles and also excessive drive for power. Insane, excessive drive for power. This is Jupiter square Pluto.
Guys, a quick notice, we just launched the Ultrasapien Ascension report, which is a completely revolutionary PDF report that is based on your astrology and your numerology with your unique combo of your name and your birth details, and it gives you a mind-blowing insight. Everybody who's seen it so far has been absolutely blown away by the level of accuracy and the detail that it gives you in decoding your cosmic blueprint. And this is not like readings that you may see online anywhere else, because every single word in the Ascension report is tailor-made for you, and it's based on our proprietary database. This is not your run-of-the-mill general stuff that you get in the astrology apps and so on and so forth. And for now, just for a short time, I'm giving an initial special offer for the YouTube fam, like a loyalty bonus of 50% discount on the Ascension report. It's usually $77. That's what it retails at, but you're gonna get it at $38.50 if you go on ultrasapien.network and you apply the coupon code YouTube50. So best thing to do, accelerate your Ascension, get the Ascension report.
Right? So Pluto is on the MC. You're seen as the powerful figure. You're making a lot of deals that elevate others, but in order to also increase your own power again, right? This is like kind of this circle that goes here between these energies, right? Now, then this Pluto, it's also caught in a this is called a talent triangle. You see this? This is a talent triangle. So this is a very smooth, empowering aspect figure, very smooth energy that allows you, that brings the best out of the planets that are constellated here. And you have here Pluto, right? You have here, we haven't actually talked about this. He has Mercury and Neptune here. Neptune and Mercury are in the 12th house. We're going to talk about this in a second. They are here in the 12th house. And you have Mars in the 2nd house. So Mars in the 2nd house in Sagittarius, right? So he fights. He fights for what? He fights for values. What kind of values? He fights for the values that he owns, that are his own. Like he will go to war for what? For values. If you can see that, or resources, right? Your 2nd house is your resources, and Sagittarius is values, right? These are the two things he will go to battle for. Either to defend, for instance, the traditional values of Russia, right? Or the resources of Russia. The land, the resources, the minerals, whatever, access, the land, all of that, the territory. He will go to war for that, right? You will go to war to defend. If you're crossing the lines for his resources, for Russia's resources, he will go to war, right? That's what the chart shows you. Now, what do we got here? And this, it works obviously very well, very smoothly with the power, right? Pluto is in a trine to Mars. These people are, if you have a Mars-Pluto in a good relationship, this is people who are ruthlessly powerful and who can have this incredible regenerative ability, right? LeBron James has this. LeBron James is Pluto exactly trine Mars, right? The guy is never gets tired. He's 40, he's still playing like a 20-something-year-old, right? He never gets tired. He has this incredible regenerative power. Athletes, a lot of athletes have it, but also warlords. A lot of warlords also have Pluto, Mars in positive aspects because it means Mars, your drive, it can draw on Pluto, right? Pluto is deep power, deep regenerative power, and also ruthless power, right? Like lethal power, right? So people who are very lethal warlords also often have this. Obviously, not somebody you want to have problems with, right? At all. Like this is kind of the archetypal guy who is this lethal boss type, right? Now, and then this is what? This is in a constellation with what I just showed you here that I talked about briefly. Mercury is with Neptune and it's in the 12th house. So he thinks about and he talks about and he explores the secrets, right? Secrets of 12th house is where his thinking is, and it's with Neptune. So he has a lot of higher sixth sense, higher intuition, but also he explores secrets, karmic secrets. Karmic secrets about what? Look at it, the asteroids here. Geographos, Hesiod. Hesiod is the founder of historiography, of history. And Geographos stands for geography, right? So he's thinking about exploring karmic secrets of history and geography. If you think about it, he's always talking about these old, like when Tucker Carlson went to him, he started with a 1 hour long, explanation of the history of Russia and Ukraine. He's always thinking about this. When Trump started talking about Greenland, Putin came and said like, yeah, the Americans already had this in 1860. There was already an attempt we already been thinking about this because in 1860, there was this whole story with the Americans trying to get Greenland and so on. So this guy is always thinking about old karmic history. That's how he thinks. That's how our patterns are, like it's thought patterns, right? Now, we've got on the MC that I told you, which is his public perception as this powerful transformative figure. He is the powerful transformative figure, right? But also the dark figure. He's experienced by the world as a dark, powerful warlord, basically, who brings transformation to the world. That's Pluto. And this is with what? It's with a couple of asteroids that give you more detail. With Transylvania, Ukraine is directly with Pluto, right? Colchis is very interesting. Colchis is the old name for Georgia. And Transylvania is a region inside Romania. Okay? Romania, Georgia, Ukraine. Think about it. These three nations, what are they? Romania, Georgia, Ukraine. They're all known for having had Putin's influence, right? Putin is destined, as you can see in the chart here, to be a transformative influence. Bring transformation to them or bring the dark power of Pluto. The dark power of Pluto is very, very, very dark, right? It's basically death and destruction, right? Now, you can see that here in the chart very clearly. So bring transformation or bring death and destruction to these places. Romania, Georgia, and Ukraine. And interestingly, you also have Washington here. Washington is here too, right? Washington is here too. So in addition to America being with his Uranus, he also has in his chart, he has basically the effect of bringing a deep transformation to Washington, right? Again, you can interpret this how you want. You can say this was something that is already affected, right, with the shift from Biden to Trump, or something that is still to come, right? But in whichever case, it is written in his chart that there is a karmic connection there. There's a deep karmic connection and a connection with what's happening in Washington in American politics, right? Now, I was going to tell you, I haven't yet answered the question of Europe. I will answer it. But before that, I'll tell you a little bit about the past lives of Vladimir Putin. And I'm relying on here, and I'm referring here to the insights. I'm using the insights of the great seer Frank Felber, who is a leading astrological and karmic and esoteric seer and master who has basically revolutionized the field of reincarnation patterns with his many studies. Most of them are not yet available outside of the German speaking world, but I'm sure that will change soon. Now, With that being said, the chart shows you as well the indications for what I'm going to say, because you have here, on the one hand, you have here this is with fixed stars. In reincarnation astrology, you're always going to look at fixed stars that are, the asteroids, they need to stand in prominent position with royal fixed stars, because the fixed stars are the higher parameters of destiny. That's what shows you. And then you have to have the intuition and the patterns, and then you have to see in the lives of the people the patterns as well, right? Now, one is here with this Akrux and Almak. Almak is the warlord. Akrux is the focus of power. Both of them stand for power, right? There's a lot of power themes in Vladimir Putin's chart, right? And this Akrux, it stands with Suvorov. What I started to tell you about Akrux and Almak, right? The stars Akrux and Almak. They stand for power, the power of the warlord, the power of the historical, the great historical figure. And you have here Suvorov and Augustus. Okay? So going back to and relying on the karmic patterns that have been decoded by Frank Felber. I'm telling you here, Vladimir Putin, in one of his very, very distant previous lives, he was the Roman Emperor Augustus. So this is a soul that is used to being at the forefront of power for a very, very long time. But then following the karmic patterns, after the split of Eastern Rome and Western Rome, and after the fall of Eastern Rome, the fall of Constantinople, and the emergence of the Rus or Russia, as the third Rome. Russia is oftentimes known as the third Rome. That's how the Russians themselves talk about it. If you listen to somebody like Dugin, he will always say, we are the third Rome. Right? And there's a long tradition to that in the Orthodoxy. The third Rome is basically in the understanding of the Russians, because Russia is now the protector of Christendom, which used to be Rome. Right? It used to be Rome, and then the second Rome was the Constantinople, Byzance, and now the third Rome, the protector of Christendom. Now, the third Rome, interestingly, as I was saying, after the fall of Byzance and after the fall of Constantinople, Putin has been incarnating in Russia, right? Or this soul has been, or this thread of cosmic consciousness, you can say, a thread of cosmic consciousness that is connected across space and time, has been continued in Russia and has become the General Suvorov. General Suvorov, he was he was one of the greatest military strategists of all time. And he led the Russians in their defense against Napoleon and against the French, basically. But he had brilliant military campaigns. He's one of the greatest military campaigner in history, right? And he basically has the memory. So if you put these together, Putin has both the karmic memory of having ruled over Europe and the memory of having been rejected by Europe, and then having to go through several incarnations of having to defend what he perceives to be the true protector of Christendom from the Europeans again and again. And he still has that karmic memory of, actually, I should be telling the Europeans what to do, or I should be leading I should be guiding the Europeans into the true path, right? And this is a karmic memory that exists. And now when you go back to his chart, you can see here that with Mars is here on the so-called galactic center. I didn't put this here as well, but it's the 25th degree of Sagittarius is the galactic center. Everything that is on the 25th degree of Sagittarius karmically acquires great galactic importance, worldwide importance for the further development of world history. And here he has Mars, the battle, the war, and he has Rubicon and Europe. Rubicon is basically that principle that you do something and you cannot pass anymore. You cannot go back. There's no going back where you have Rubicon. And Europe is Europe, right? So it's written in his chart that Vladimir Putin is destined to be in a great cosmic battle, a battle of cosmic proportion, or in other words, a world war with Europe. You could say this is already realized because the Europeans were basically backing Ukraine and there was this big war which changed the world. And isn't that already the realization of his chart? And you could say, yes, maybe this is already the realization of his chart. But there is also a case to be made to say that, no, this is not yet what happened. If you've been following my channel, you know I talk a lot about this, that there is some very difficult years coming ahead of us, especially 2027, 2028, when there are some extremely harsh and hard constellations for humanity that make it look very likely that if we don't have a real, come to Jesus moment on the global scale, right? And we have a turning towards Christ consciousness, then we have a turning towards a higher unifying consciousness that unites us and brings us together. There could be a great confrontation, a great conflict on the global scale. A lot of states are getting ready for it right now. Now, I didn't go too much into any of the individual states, and that's okay. I know that I have several people here who have always been asking about things. There's a subscriber, a viewer who has been asking me a long time ago about Finland. Finland, Fenja is the old name for Finland, is actually with Putin's Jupiter. And is not something that, this looks like, and we had here Finland, Helsinki as well with Uranus, right? So he wants to liberate. He wants to liberate Finland, but he wants to, liberate, and he wants to bring some type of great opportunities for Finland, right? Not to necessarily to destroy it or nuke it or make it turn it into rubble, So, but that being said, we can't unlock and decode everything else. This analysis on its own should be enough for us to understand that there is karmic continuity. There are patterns that are repeated throughout history, right? Which is really the deep perspective of why souls do what they do, right? It's not just you wake up and you decide to be this, or you wake up and then, okay, the next level up is to say, okay, I have this astrology chart. I have this chart, and this shows me why things happen in my life. And you're already much further than the person who thinks everything is random, who thinks that the universe is just a randomness generator, right? You're already much, much further, much closer to understanding God's plan. But then there is still one level higher, and that is to understand, why am I born with this chart? And why is next person born with a different chart? Is that random? That's not random neither. Just like, right? Because some people are into astrology, and then they understand astrology, and they understand that, okay, you have a destiny that's written in your chart. It's not random. But then they think that the chart itself is random. That why you have this chart and why somebody else has this chart. It's not. There is a continuity. There is a history. There is consciousness learning through multiple incarnations, right? Learning through multiple perspectives that are added so that we can get closer and closer to God, and so that the cosmic story can unfold, right? So that the cosmic story that we are co-authors of can unfold. So Putin's example allows you to understand a lot of this and think back and understand history. We have to be a little bit like Putin, who is so, entranced with history. He always wants to get deeper into history. As I showed you, he has this drive to, decode the riddles of history and the riddles of karmic history. I wouldn't be surprised at all if there are astrologers that are talking to Putin regularly, and if he is interested himself, or he's already had the exposure to this knowledge that I'm sharing with you right now. Because his chart tells me that he has this exposure, that this is not going to be something that is foreign to him, because he's wired to this, to explore this. And there's something we can learn about this, because to understand the karmic backgrounds of things allows us to understand much better why things are happening now and what their future possibilities are. Now, all of that being said, obviously we don't hope for war. We wish for the betterment and the evolution and the awakening of humanity. But I hope that this set of information, this information that I gave you, allows you to understand things better and learn for yourself as well. Now, I leave you with this, and I wish you all the best. Be well and be blessed.